Hey everybody, and welcome to Fix My Coaster Layout Episode 4. This is a collaboration between myself and Andrew at MickanMan's RCT station, where we take user-submitted layouts and offer some suggestions on how to improve them, from realism to flow to scenario play to whatever else is asked for. So in the last episode, we looked at the Golden Fleece by Ryan. This was a Virginia Real Coaster built in the Magic Quarters scenario. And here you can see Andrew's attempt. Andrew took the extra step and actually left all of the other original rides in place that Ryan sent with us initially. Now, Ryan did comment that he was okay if we wanted to clear out a little bit of space initially, which is what I did just to give myself some breathing room. And I think if you watched my episode, you could see what kind of things I did to create a little bit of space. But I think Andrew went the scenario route and really took some interesting requirements, I guess, in terms of making this work in the existing space. So we can see here, station is more or less kind of where the other one was. We have a single lift hill up to the top, and then we are getting that kind of realistic switchback slalom kind of thing going on. And then as we spin around to the other side, we have these kind of really nicely placed kind of nested curves almost, with the two side by side and the one underneath. And here, if we actually remove some scenery and look underneath, we can kind of see it all doing its thing in here. Here, I'll pull out all the different stuff. So we can kind of see how this goes, alternating those large corners, small corners, and avoiding that 3D cinema inside, which is also a challenge. These little corners on either side are kind of fun in the fact that I kind of like how it sort of works its way all around and then has this final kind of tight turn with a drop down underneath the incoming track to get up into the other side. This one's using a lot more height variation than mine did, so we have some more hills and different things like that. Definitely skews more towards the scenario play than the realism aspect, but I think it's still a pretty nice layout, and I do like all the little mine type touches here with the little canopies. We kind of had the same idea with that, kind of looking at this whole thing, and also the same idea with the water, just mine was here on the front side instead. So pretty neat look for this one, but now I think it's time to jump into today's episode. So let's take a look at what we're working on. Today's submission comes from Observe the Train in his park, Mountainy Sandbox. So this is a wooden coaster, as you can see, in a certain plot of land here with the red sand kind of marking that out. It's a twister layout. We've got some helixes here, but also a number of hills and a straight drop. Real long station here with 3 trains. Nice station flyby right here. Kind of like what this queue is doing up and over top. That's kind of interesting as far as placement goes. The ask for this one was to create a wooden coaster in more or less the same space, although he has offered the ability to expand out if we need to, which I'll be doing just a little bit. And the ask was to run 3 trains realistically with a block break in the middle, and add all the details like transfer tracks and things like that. So with that said, let's see what we've got here and jump into my suggestions. Alrighty, so we've got ourselves a clean space, and we're going to start with our wooden coaster here. I'm looking for a CCI design, I think. So that really kind of blends that sort of turn-based while also having some good airtime and also having a mid-course brake run. Because really, as far as wooden coasters go, you don't see them very often. They're on a couple of the Intamin prefab coasters, as well as some of the Intamin non-prefab coasters. And then really you see them on CCIs more than anything else. So that's what we're going to look after here. And I've cleared out some space, and we're probably going to use a little bit more because I want a pretty decent size hill here for the start. So I think these duelers over here are going to have to go, but that is a hopefully small price to pay for a decent layout. Let's get this brown. I hate that gray default layout. Not my biggest favorite there. Okay, so we're going to start with a 5-tile station because that will support a 6-car PTC train. These 2x2 seats, the standard ones, are PTC trains, Philadelphia Toboggan Company. I'm going to come out of the station here. We'll drop down. And really, this is kind of arbitrary here. We can adjust that if we want. But then let's pick this up. I am starting the lift hill on kind of the upswing. In this instance, you're going to have a little bit of speed kind of going up onto it. So we can kind of do that little bit of detailing there. All right, I want to get to 110. So I believe these guys are going to have to go, but we can look at that in a minute. Okay, so when we crest the lift hill, we're going to keep the lift on, and just for one more, and then we're going to add one more piece, and then we're going to do this little like down and up. So this is a CCI, and by the way, CCI is Custom Coasters International, if you're not familiar. The wooden coaster company that has since been defunct, 1992 to 2000. So pretty short run, but they did a good 30-something coasters at least. And they kind of had funky layouts, which is what I kind of gravitate to and enjoy. So if my calculation should be right, that gets us right down to about where we want to be, which is right there. So we will do a little bit of landscape adjustment here later, but this gives us a full 1, 2, 3 here, which is going to give us enough speed to kind of do what we want here in a little bit. Okay. So let's go kind of try to be a little bit smoother in here. So we'll unbank that before we go up. And then we'll put this one in kind of unbanked. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So typically CCI coasters are pretty unbanked. So in order to be affordable wooden coasters, they really only banked from about 0 to 35 degrees or so. So you didn't see a whole lot of real steep banking unless it was needed. So we're going to do it down here because we're going super fast right down here. So we're basically, the strategy is up high, we go unbanked, down low, we go banked. So that's kind of what you can use as a kind of guide there. We're going to do what we call our CCI turnaround here. It'll drop as it goes along. Okay, and then let's go. Let's see. We can do that, and that nests it really well there. Okay. And then what we want to do basically is kind of wrap this around. So if you remember the original design, it had a lot of these turns and everything, but they didn't really relate to each other. So one of the things we want to do is relate to each other as far as those turns go. All right, so we're at 85 here, which is going to be probably a little bit slow. We can actually go ahead and start running this just to see what it'll look like as it goes along. I think I am going to go ahead and pull these guys out just from a means of visualizing all of this. So, sorry, those guys. Those are gone, and then we'll take out some scenery here just to give us some more space. All right, so you can kind of see just in relation to the overall height of what we're looking at here, this is going to be pretty slow over top, but that's okay. We can really play with that pacing a little bit. So we got our little drop here. This piece ensures that we get over the top. Got our nice fast drop here. So we've got decent pacing up and over. Not too bad there. Curve back. 13 miles an hour is actually not that bad. So that's kind of where we want to make it feel like it's just barely going to make it. And then we'll get over the top. Okay. Now we're down to 10 here, so we got this nice big drop. And then we'll put a little speed hill in here. So what we're working up to is our mid-course brake run. Since that was one of the things that Observe the Train requested in this design, is a mid-course brake run somewhere. So let's put in a little speed hill here. Let's go up to 30. We'll put a flat bit there, and then we're going to go a little bit taller. And the decision as to whether we put a flat piece up top is kind of purely based on where we want the height to be. Let's see what that speed looks like. That actually hits pretty well at 14. I think that's where we want to go. Although, you know, let's go flat. Give that a little more speed, which is totally fine. And actually, this works pretty well if we're going to wrap this around here, because now we've got the two straight pieces there for the station. The station sits back from that turnaround. I want this to come back up against the track, just so we don't have this kind of awkward no man's land there in the middle. We're going to do this, and I'm going to put my brake run in, but I'm going to do a short brake run. I'm kind of envisioning this as more or less a diagonal brake run. So if you kind of figure this being kind of point A and this being point B, that would be straight in real life. So that's kind of how I'm envisioning that brake run. We don't need to be fully straight, but we do want to have enough kind of flat bits that it could be considered as much. So that's what we're going to do as far as that goes. All right, so now let's get that smooth pull out there and drop down. And trying to figure out what we want to do. I think the best method is to cross somewhere over here, either before or after. Wrap this guy and then do something in here and then put a brake run kind of back. So I'm kind of thinking back this way we'll have our brakes. I don't want to drop a block brake in there just yet, because then our ghost train will stop doing its thing, which it did anyway. Oh, because we already dropped one in there. Well, shoot. All right, well, we're going to be a little bit blind as far as that goes. Okay, so we have our steep drop here with the extra straight piece here for that nice shallow turnaround, or a nice shallow drop. We're going to do a double one here just so we can get that little bit of extra height. We're at 65 here at 50. The key thing with a mid-course brake run is two things. So first of all, it needs to be high enough up, higher than the rest of the layout. So if the train were to stop here with the block brakes, it needs to be able to make it back from 0 miles per hour all the way around. So that's step one. Step two is that you want to time it just right so that under your normal operations, this block is cleared just before the next one crests the lift hill. So then that one doesn't stop on the lift hill. Now, obviously, some of that can be in adjusting your minimum maximum waiting times, but nonetheless, that's something you want to consider. So I'm going to say 50 is probably okay. All right, actually, that works pretty well because it just gets us underneath there just fine. So this is kind of how I practiced some of these layouts as I was kind of trying some options. When it comes to this, I had looked at potentially squeezing in here, but it didn't quite make sense. So we're just going to cut this corner across and kind of do it like this, because it should set us up really well. Does it? Yeah, it does. Okay, to actually get us a nice little final CCI drop right here, we'll turn around. Because we're going around a wide corner here, we got to put some extra width in this side. So let's look at this, and kind of there we have the whole thing. Now, a couple key things. First of all, we're going to need to bring this down so it's not sitting on the ground. Now, granted, wooden coasters have a little more leeway as far as this goes, but you generally want to have some support structure below, only because the track sits on ledgers, which sits on footers, and so and so. And this looks a little more realistic when it's not actually plopped on the ground. Now, if you have an older wooden coaster, you can generally get away from that, but that's few and far between, I would suggest. So next step here, I think, is trying to figure out how to end this, because we don't want to go too far. Typically, you want your second half to be a little shorter than your first half. So we are going to try and end and either a turnaround, maybe a helix. So a helix would make sense for a CCI coaster. A lot of them had kind of final helixes. Boss, Shivering Timbers, those sorts of ones come to mind. So let's see if we can't get it to just nest in here real nice. If we drop down from here to let's try 20. Okay, actually that works really well. So that puts us right up against this one again. No gaps, no kind of awkwardness. You really want to get that flow just right. And then I rarely ever do this, but we're going to use the actual helix pieces. So you can do sort of undulating helix, but in this case, we're just going to do this. And then, let's see, so we can do this. And actually, that's a good way to do a brake run, although, one more. So let's pop up one real quick, and I'll tell you why. So give it a couple sections, then we can start our break. So let's do 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. And then watch now, we drop this down, and then go flat, and then we're just lined up at the same height. So now we can back up from our station here, give it a block break, and give it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We can even have this one sit back just a little bit, which may be a better option. Let's do that actually. And that just gives you a little bit of gap from the station. That was weird. Okay. There we go. Click, click. And then probably what I'll actually do is pull out some bits of this brake run. From a realism standpoint, you don't need all the brakes, and CCI's rarely had all the brakes in here, so we'll do kind of the same thing here. So the reason I have this high up is another CCI thing, again a cost savings thing. When you hit clamp brakes on a wooden coaster, the speed obviously is going to affect how much those things wear. So if you slam into those brakes at full speed, full tilt, you're going to wear them out a lot quicker than if you hit them at a bit slower speed. So in a lot of these instances, you'll see Hades in Mount Olympus is a great example of this. And that's a Gravity Group even, which was the folks from CCI. After CCI dissolved, a number of them went to Gravity Group. So you see this in a number of different CCI coasters as well. Cheetah at Wild Adventures was one of them, where you have a final brake run that's a little higher up. So in this case, we're at 35 feet. And then we're going to slow the train down to a reasonable speed, and then we'll drop it down into the final brakes. So we're going to reduce that wear and tear, hitting it at a slower speed, and we're also going to get in here and be able to ease it down into this final brakes. And two, since we have our ride here, we can also put in our transfer track, which the CCI transfer track is a table sliding switch, as this. So we're going to drop in a couple brakes here. Couple brakes. So the idea is we're going to use a 5 by the length of our track switch. 5 by, here we go. That's 6. There's 5. So we don't need to go 6, we can go 5. We can go a little shorter here if we want. And kind of knock this off because our station is indeed 5. But the idea is that when you want to transfer all 4 on a train, this whole table, all 3 of these pieces of track, slide over this way all at once. And if we want to put something in this first stall, then we slide 1, and the train just comes in here nice and easy, or backs out of the station, and lands at that location, then slides back over. If we want to park on spot 2, then we slide the whole thing all the way over, and then it parks on spot 2. That's why we need brakes on these, because they actually act as a regular section of track. So we need to make sure that that is accommodated. Okay. So now we can see we've got 4 trains, because we've got another block. I added a block up top here just to clear it a little sooner. So we'll go down to 3 trains, and let's start this one up. We can always adjust the speed of the lift hill as we need. But let's just take a look at pacing real quick. And then I will cut to after I've themed it. All right, let's speed this boy up. Let's look at our speed here. Okay, crested real slow, which is great, 56 miles per hour or so. That's a pretty good larger size wooden coaster speed. Press there nicely. I kind of like this. We get this nice little hesitation pause around the turnaround, which is great. Then we have our speed hill right there, which works well. Hitting this at about 19, so we're going to get some laterals there, but that's okay. CCIs were more about laterals than anything else. So you can see the train is stopped. That'll mean something we'll want to adjust a little later. Flat corner here. That final little CCI drops. We're still holding pretty decent speed here, 27, 28, 33. And we'll kind of lose speed as this one goes up. And we'll hit those brakes at about 20 miles per hour, which is actually just perfect. That works really well. You can kind of see that drop right there. And there we go. Right. So relatively easy, I think, overall. And the things that I think we want to focus on here is parallel tracks, again, kind of lining up. And if you've watched some of the previous videos, you've seen this already, kind of nesting ourselves into the space and really making sure all those elements relate to one another. I do kind of like this view here where we have these kind of two stacked corners a little bit. If you go to the other side, you can see they're almost overhanging a little bit, which is fine. And then we just get by here with this one skirting underneath the drop. So I think on the whole it turned out pretty well. Hopefully you all agree. So why don't we go ahead and jump over to the finished theme version. So here we have our finalized layout with some theming added onto it. I've dubbed this one Crop Duster, and we're running here with our 3 trains. Just a little bit of theming here on the station and the transfer track, just around this area. Wooden coasters don't tend to lend themselves great to theming just out on the course. Certainly you can put some tunnels and some other things on there if you like. For whatever reason, CCIs tend to seem to have a lot of tunnels. So I don't know, it's just nice to have as an option. As far as scenery goes on this one of the challenges is actually covering this gigantic transfer track when we have 2 trains with the sliding track, because not only do you have to cover the 2 sections that have the spare track location, you get to cover 2 on the other side for the space for it to move back and forth. So we end up with a pretty kind of gigantic structure here, which we're doing our best to screen a little bit with some plants and some other things like that. And we just went with sort of a generic wood and kind of barn theme, I guess, here with this little water tower bit and little shop underneath for photos or whatever else that may be, and then just a little plaza in the front. Couple clusters of landscaping around, nothing too elaborate, but works just fine. We did adjust our dispatch timing just a little bit so that this one gets through the mid-course breaks before the next one gets going. Now, if you were watching close there, that one just barely stopped, so probably need to bump it by a couple more seconds, but it does have this kind of nice dual right here on the kind of out and background, which we can see here for a second. I think if I did a tunnel on this, it would probably be at the bottom of this drop right here. Straight sections are a lot easier to do tunnels on in RCT than something on a curve. Not to say that you can't, but you can certainly do it if you want to go there. Looks like this one's going to be just a little bit early, but here we'll get this actually just perfect. We'll get this nice dual right there. Totally unintentional, but I'll take it. Always go for the free dual if you can get it. So I think that's it for this one. Definitely check out Andrew's attempt as well, which he'll be posting on his channel. We will be back next time around with episode 5. And if you'd like to submit your own, feel free to send it to us with the email address fixmycoasterlayout@gmail.com. And we accept RCT1 and RCT2 files, both the scenario SV6 format or SV4 if it's RCT1, or the track format at .td4 or .td6, or the new save format, the .park format as well. So all of those are totally valid if you are interested. And once you submit it, we will get back to you here just as soon as we can. So until next time, thank you all very much for watching. Have a great day, and we will catch you in the next one. Bye now.